Welcome into the Early Wedge, part of the Early Edge universe. We're here every single Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. For those of you watching or listening on demand, we love all of you as well. And if you've been here since the beginning, back in January, you've been cashing ticket after ticket after ticket because my guys are the absolute very best. Now, this week, it's the biggest week of the year on the PGA Tour. $25 million is the purse. TPC Sawgrass, the stadium course, about 25 minutes from where I'm sitting right here and right now. So last week, boy, did we have a good week. But that was last week. Let's bring in the stars of the show. You know them. You love them. And they are just about ready to unleash their players' pick. First and foremost, this man has been on an absolute heater, scorcher. He is the counselor of cash, Mr. Nejad. Good afternoon, sir.
Love the show. Love that I'm here with you all every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Love that the chat is already lighting up. Listen, it has been a great run. And I always say it, golf is very volatile. So there will be sections where the runs aren't so great, but we are on a nice little cruise right now. And hopefully we can continue it at the Players.
I certainly do hope that. Now, he is from CBS Sports. You read his stuff all the time, cbssports.com. The one and only at amateur status on the Twitter, Patrick McDonald. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, gang. And yeah, I'm just trying to keep up with Sia. You know, he's in the left lane, in the fast lane, going 80 in the 60. I'm the grandma on the right lane, just trying to keep up. 10-2, baby. In the Players' Championship, we might shift it into high gear now.
Let's do it. I like shifting it into high gear. And if you're brand new to the Early Wedge, we give you head-to-head matchups. We do a little DFS. We do round finishes. We do it all, and we do it fast. So you don't have to sit here for 90 minutes. All right? So let's get right into it. And, boys, here are the up-to-the-minute odds, courtesy of Caesar Sportsbook and Casino. And if you shop around, you can get different numbers, but universally, Rahm, Scheffler, and Rory McIlroy are the betting favorites. Quickly, see your thoughts. Should this be the way that the odds should look?
I think, yeah, Coach. I think so. I mean, this certainly makes sense. It's so hard to parse among the top three. I think Cantlay at plus 1,200 is interesting given his history here. I would have thought that would be closer to plus 1,600. The question becomes, who do you put behind Jon Rahm, Scottie Scheffler, and Rory McIlroy from an odds standpoint? And I suppose you could make the argument that it's Patrick Cantlay. So, guys that are down there in that 20 range, I think there's some value there. But anything shorter than that, I'm probably going to be staying away from personally.
Patrick, your thoughts?
I actually think Rory McIlroy should be the favorite in this one. He began the week as the favorite, and we've seen Jon Rahm just take money. But I'm a bit concerned with Jon Rahm's driving, to tell you the truth, especially the left miss. We saw the double cross a lot there at Bay Hill, and you cannot miss left here at TPC Sawgrass. It's one of the most penal golf courses for left misses in particular. You just have to look at the 18th hole there with water on the left the entire fairway. So I'd put Rory at the top and then kind of Scottie and Rahm behind him.
Yeah, DraftKings, where I got a lot of my plays today, they actually have Rory as the betting favorite over there. So in some places, he is the betting favorite. So you're right on top of that. By the way, who would have thought that Jon Rahm would play, 6 over the final 3 days last week? I'm very concerned with him as well. All right, let's get into it. Storylines that could affect the betting lines today. And Patrick, I'm going to start with you because course history, course knowledge, it's so important at the stadium course. Start us off.
You see rookies and first-timers struggle here all the time. It's happened to Jon Rahm. It's happened to Rory McIlroy. It's just a bit of growing pains. But for course history versus current form, so you mentioned it at the top, Patrick Cantlay, you got to wonder what you're going to want to do with this guy. He hasn't collected a paycheck from the Players' Championship since 2018, but he arrives with back-to-back top 5 finishes in the last 2 designated events. He led in strokes gained tee to green there at the Genesis Invitational, was top 5 in that category at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and throughout his career, he has eaten up Pete Dye designs. You think about PGA West, Harbor Town, TPC River Highlands. Those courses have been very kind to Patrick Cantlay throughout his career, but for some reason, one way or another, TPC Sawgrass has not. I'm interested to see which one kind of breaks this week. Will his good play shine through, or will the course history reign supreme?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. And this is also kind of the start, my storyline of major season. We talk about it all the time. Remember, guys, back when the Players' Championship was in May, we said it was the 5th major because it was right in the middle of major season. But now they've moved it to March. And now it's never been more important because we talked about it a few weeks ago right here on the show. that only 70 players will guarantee their spot next year in 2024. Only 70 players will make it into the FedEx Cup playoffs. There's going to be some big-time names that you don't see in the playoffs this year. So, Sia, how important in your mind is this week for everybody?
That's the thing. It's so important for everybody. This is critical. And I wonder, we just saw last week Kurt Kitayama beat this very same odds board, right? All of these big name players, we saw Kurt Kitayama sort of creep to the top and win it. And I just wonder which of these guys who certainly is not going to be guaranteed to be in the top 70, which of these guys week to week will be emerging and playing among the Victor Hovlands like they were last week, or the Tyrrell Hattons, or of course the Rory McIlroys and Scotty Schefflers. I think there's some guys, listen, this is going to be an interesting tournament because there's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of good players that are just going to take themselves out because that's golf, right? And I just wonder which of the names. Now, Kurt Kitayama truly is kind of one of those classic pretender names, like nobody would ever really take seriously among the elite. Well, he threw it in our face last week, and I just wonder who the guy is this week. There's guys that are in like, the really long odds, 70, 80 to 1, 90 to 1, like Corey Connors or Keegan Bradley, who's up there, or Tom Hoagie, maybe even like a Wyndham Clark or Jonathan Vegas. All of these guys I think can contend here if everything goes right. And I'm just really interested to see who emerges among the Rahms, Rorys, and Scotty Schefflers.
Sunday is always my favorite day at the Players because all those guys you talked about, if they get into the mix, man, that pressure that you feel sleeping on a Saturday night, knowing what's coming the next day, knowing all the different things you got to do, it's magical. It really is. Yes, Sia.
Can I say, too, credit to Full Swing, because they really got in there with a lot of these young guys in particular, like Sahith Theegala, for example, in terms of just kind of, and even Matt Fitzpatrick, when he took down the U.S. Open, who I consider a young golfer because he still looks like he's 11 years old. Like these are guys where we don't really appreciate the moment. We see the moment in terms of like the next shot that they take, but we really don't appreciate what's actually going on around them. And so I credit to Full Swing for kind of laying out the groundwork, what they're doing overnight, whether they're with their family or not, and what they're actually hearing on the golf course. Like some of the stuff Matt Fitzpatrick was hearing from that, obviously pro-American crowd was to me a little disconcerting, a little obnoxious. And I just think it's really interesting to actually finally see and hear what those guys see and hear as well.
Well, it's kind of cool because they also used all of us from First Cut on Full Swing as well. So we got to hear a little bit of Rick and myself and all of us, right? It'd be interesting if one of us was on Full Swing for season 2, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be interesting if one of us was?
It would be interesting if all three of us were, to be honest. But one of us would also be moderately interesting, yes.
That's very true.
Like
I'm always looking out for all three of us. I'm always looking out for all of us. You guys know that. By the way, so far, the quote of the day is by Jason. He says, yes, but Sia could take the left lane, the carpool lane, because he has the passengers from the Early Edge and the Early Wedge. Interesting, Jason. You're right. He's got everybody. Yeah. How come you're not delivering like that, Patrick?
I've got like the fake dummy going on in the front seat.
All right, let's get into it, boys. We do everything here at the Early Wedge, and people have been loving how we're kind of leaning in and telling you what we would play with our DFS. This is such a popular thing, whether it's tournament DFS or daily round by round DFS, but you can use this information however you like. Patrick, let's start with you. Who do you like this week? Who are you fading in DFS?
We got cooked a little bit there at the API. I'm not going to lie. I think Brian Harman shot like 82 on Friday, but that's going to happen when you go to the bargain bin, and you can't be afraid to go back. And if you want to lean into the volatility of the Players Championship, there's no one better than Siwoo Kim at 7,600. He's a former winner here. He's driving the golf ball great. And kind of like Patrick Cantlay, he kills Pete Dye Designs. Winner there in Palm Springs, has played well at Harbor Town. Obviously won here at the Players Championship as well. So at 7,600, I think you're getting a fair price on a previous winner. Matt Kuchar as well. He won it when the tournament was back in May. And we're not too far removed from that top 10 finish at the Genesis Invitational. Around the green, he's great. Putting's great. Iron play is going to be a little bit iffy, but that's kind of what you're getting with someone at $7,200. And then finally, if you want to go a little more down the board in the 6K range, we just talked about Full Swing. He arguably stole the show. Joel Damon at 6,800. He's missed his last couple cuts, but those aren't really golf courses you want to attack Joel Damon on. Bay Hill is going to be tough for him. He's not super long off the tee. His game is hit fairways and stick wedge shots, and that's what you're going to get this week at TPC Sawgrass. He finished T32 last year, has a T13 finish as well, or T12 in 2019. So I love the fit for him. And we're going to fade Jon Rahm again. I said it at the top. We faded him last week. It somehow worked out for us after the first round where it really did not look like it was going to. But the left miss off the tee is really concerning to me at the moment. He's not driving the golf ball as well as Jon Rahm can. And the state of Florida throughout his career hasn't been all that kind to him. So at 11,800, I'd rather look to a Scotty Scheffler or a Rory McIlroy if you're paying up for one of the big dogs.
I am in a kind of a golf pool with a buddy of mine, and Jon Rahm was like, you have a certain number of dollars to spend, and we had a great team. We were like 8th out of 160, and then he cost us last week. Jon Rahm is dead to me until this week. All right, see you. Who you like, who you fade?
Well, Coach, first of all, credit to Patrick for fading Jon Rahm last week and for doing it again, because not a lot of people have the guts to do that. But if you recall, the one thing Jon Rahm really did to us was take our third first-round leader in a row. If he had not emerged with that final stretch of ridiculousness, then we would have had Cameron Young tied, with 2 other guys for our third first-round leader in a row. So I wish that sort of downfall for him started perhaps on the back 9 on day 1 instead of on day 2. But here we are. So we'll hit first-round leaders again later in the show. But here are my plays. Jason Day. There's not a bad word I can say about Jason Day at this point. If you want to criticize anything, because the ball striking has been unbelievable and the short game has been even better, I guess you could maybe criticize the approach play a little bit because it hasn't been amazing. But when you contrast what he's been doing, both with the ball striking and the short game, with his finishing positions, this guy at 8,000 is an absolute bargain. Probably should be, honestly, if you look at the metrics, just look at the metrics. Don't look at the name. He could be in the 9K range very, very easily. By the way, finishing positions over the last handful of tournaments: T10, T9, 5th, T7, T18, cut, T16, T21, T11, and T8. This guy is absolutely dominating the tour, and we're really not talking about it much. 8,000 is such a bargain. You might notice with my other 2 guys here, I'm really going for ball strikers. I'm really going for guys who are good with the greens in regulation, who are likely going to keep it in the fairway, and who are going to be really good on approach. So Corey Connors is one of those guys. He's not exciting, but he can absolutely bust out in a tournament like this. And at 7,400, love him for the ball striking. He's been really good here as well. He's gained with the putter 2 out of 3 times here, and he fits the ball striking profile. Dating back to last summer, Corey Connors has gained ball striking in 11 out of 12 tournaments. Absolutely love that. Finally, Tom Hoge. Speaking of a guy kind of in that sort of Joel Damon mold, if you will, that might not be super long off the tee, but can absolutely stick it with the approach play. Really like Tom Hoge's value at 7,400. He's been pretty bad off the tee, but I don't think it's going to hurt him real bad here because I think he's going to keep it in the fairway. Absolutely love his game. He has been really good here, specifically at the players, not only with the finishing positions, but if you look at the metrics with the approach play and with the putter, he has this place figured out, at least in terms of what a 7,400 golfer will do for you.
And you are fading Xander, correct?
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Fading Xander Schauffele, 10,000. It's just too much. It's not somebody like, I don't want to get cute and play a low on Xander Schauffele here. I would rather just flirt around with the 9K range or take one of the 3 guys up top.
What do the picks from Sia and Patrick have in common? You don't see any rookies. You don't see any newbies. Tom Hoge's like the closest, and he's still not a young guy. You got to have experience around this track. You really, really do. A couple of chat comments. Jason, hey, Coach, during the broadcast, you have to give a hint on who you like by saying, this guy really has the early edge on the group. You guys dare me to do that?
Oh, that's such
I'll be
a
listening.
good idea.
I'll be listening.
You know who my partner is this week?
I do.
Who you got?
Who's my partner this week?
Mark Immelman. So you make
that would be so. Go
yes. Ahead. No, I was gonna say you make that reference and have Mark Immelman make a like a first cut one and done reference. That would be fun.
He'd be like, Coach, what was that? Was that a slip of the tongue? That's a horrible Mark Immelman impersonation. But first cut, early wedge, we're going to be on the marquee group. And do you know who the marquee group that I'll be calling? Excuse me. A little guy named Jon Rahm, a little guy named Scotty Scheffler, a little guy named Rory McIlroy. I'll call every single shot Thursday. In the afternoon, I get Spieth, I get JT, I get Max Homa. You're welcome, America. You're welcome.
That's awesome.
It is awesome, right?
Coach, just real quick. I know you were going to say but you're the host of the Early Wedge, and of course you give out picks as well, and you are going to be, calling some of the best golfers in the world like that. But to me, and some of the times where you give some insight where you're actually on the course, that is an advantage that this show has more than really any other show, or at least most other shows out there. It is awesome.
Well, thank you. Sometimes because we get so busy, I forget how cool it is, some of the things that I've done, but that I still get to do. Because I tell you guys all the time, all I care about is all of us rising together, whether it's the fans or whether it's us together, because it's a blast. It's a blast getting to do this. It just is. It's the most fun you could ever have in the world. All right, gentlemen, we've done DFS, we've done storylines, but we got to get into the bread and butter, the meat. But before we can do that, we got to pay those pesky little bills. Here's a word from one of our incredible partners.
Down this lane is a path to history. Yes, sir! It leads to a tradition unlike any other, the Masters on CBS.
I will say this. There are doing regular tour events, and then there's doing the Masters. And that's in a whole nother league too. I got to do it for 3 years when I was at ESPN. Oh, my goodness. Just one single tier the first day. Just one. All right. Now, I say it all the time here on the show. Head-to-head matchups, they're not exciting. They're not sexy. You're not going to win a ton of money. They're not big-time odds, but it's where you make your money. I will stand by that until the end of time. So, Counselor, start us off. What head-to-heads do you like this week, and where did you find them?
Yeah, you're right. This is where you make your money sustained over a long period of time. I went 3 for 3 last week in the tournament head-to-head department. Now, there was one pick last week that I absolutely loved, and I got to concede this week there's not a pick I love as much as that one. That was the Ricky Fowler over Aaron Wise one. Oh my gosh. And that's the one I brought over to one of the Early Edge shows. I think it was Wednesday morning, because to me, it just seems so easy. But I do like all of these picks. I just wanted to point it out there that some head-to-heads are better than others, and I really liked that Ricky Fowler one. Let's start with Wyndham Clark over Thomas Dietrich. So Wyndham Clark's experience here, his history here is actually pretty bad, but I think Wyndham Clark is a completely different golfer now. He truly is. Off the tee, he's still good, but where he's great lately, and it's a small sample size, is the approach game. He has been really rock solid on approach, and we know he can get there at times with the short game, and particularly with the putter. Thomas Dietrich, on the other hand, I think Thomas Dietrich is a great talent. I just don't think his game is there right now. Over the last few tournaments, the ball striking has been downright bad, and I just don't think this is the type of course where you kind of get right. It's not a get right spot. I think there's volatility with both of these guys, but I think there's way more volatility with Dietrich, and I think there's way more upside with Wyndham Clark. So give me Wyndham Clark minus 110 over Dietrich. Tom Hoge, we talked about him, minus 110 over Matt Kuchar. I don't mind Matt Kuchar, to be honest with you. I just think this is the tournament for Tom Hoge. Over the last 3 tournaments, even when he hasn't been playing Tom Hoge golf, he's still top 30 these tournaments at the Players with great fields. So I think Tom Hoge minus 110 over Matt Kuchar. There's an edge there. Finally, Adam Hadwin, a guy that I'm not normally on, but I do like where his game has been. I mean, he missed his last cut. He's minus 110 over Alex Noren. Alex Noren just hasn't been very good. I think if the wind was up this week at the Players, and if we were really going to get some egregious conditions with the weather, I think I would stay off this, because I know Alex Noren can be really good with the short game and just kind of traversing bad weather. But in this case, we're just going to get Alex Noren in pretty decent conditions, and I'll take Adam Hadwin in that case, minus 110 over him. Finally, for day one, some people sometimes ask for like a day 1 3-ball. By the way, those 3 picks were over at DraftKings, but the round 1 3-ball I have is over at Caesars, and it's Jason Day plus 100. I like Jason Day for this tournament, as everybody knows, over Lucas Herbert and Aaron Wise. There's that name, Aaron Wise again. Again, another guy that's a talent but is not playing well. Jason Day is playing better than most of the players on the PGA Tour right now. So Lucas Herbert, he's not a throwaway necessarily. He can have a good round here and there, but I don't think he's a very good course fit here. I do think Jason Day is. So Jason Day at plus 100 over those 2 guys, Lucas Herbert and Aaron Wise. I like that for round 1.
It's such a smart play, because when really what you're doing with the 3-baller is 2 things. Trying to bring the number down, first of all, and you're trying to find a name of a guy that you just don't think is going to compete. Mm-hmm. And both of these guys, but more Herbert than anything, because remember the nerves. When you come out of the gate on Thursday, there are nerves. Jason Day has been here and been great on this course. I love all 4 of those plays. Thank you, Sia. All right, Patrick, you also have 4 head-to-head matchups that you like this week. Talk to me.
Yeah, we went 3 for 4 last week. A few plus money bangers for you guys, but none this week, unfortunately. Didn't like many of the lines, but I do love Keith Mitchell minus 120 over Sahith Theegala. Over the last 3 months since the start of the new year, Keith Mitchell's number 1 strokes gained off the tee, 8th in strokes gained tee to green. He has a much higher floor than Theegala. I like Theegala long term. I think he'll win this year, but just floor wise, Keith Mitchell should be the play this week at minus 120. Next is Russell Henley, -120 over Billy Horschel. You think about Russell Henley, he's a winner at Mayakoba. He's played well at Wyndham, these shorter positional golf courses where you can really rely on your irons. He gained nearly 12 strokes on approach last year at this tournament. Meanwhile, Billy Horschel is really struggling. He's missed 3 out of his last 5 cuts to start the year. So give me Henley -120. And then Colin Morikawa, -120 over Shane Lowry. There happens to be someone else on the other side of this on the board. We'll get to that one later, but I just love the iron play for Morikawa. I know it's the cut at the API, but the wind is supposed to be down this week. That really seems to be his kryptonite. Is he can't really fight that iron, that little fade in there into the windows that he wants to. That should hopefully be no concern this week. Extremely accurate off the tee. We know what he can do on approach. So -120 over Shane Lowry, who's been a bit volatile tee to green. I know the history here. There's been some good starts recently, but I like Morikawa much more. And then finally, this one really stuck out to me. You're getting Scotty Scheffler, the best tee to green player, the best ball striker over any period of time you look past year or so, 6 months, 12 months, 3 months, it doesn't matter, over Justin Thomas, who is really struggling on approach. He's gotten by with a massive effort from a short game. I think over 4 rounds, Scotty Scheffler will just beat him to death with his tee to green presence. So -130. I love that play.
I can't believe the number was, as you can see, I played the same one from DraftKings. I could not believe, Patrick, the number was -130. I think the only reason it is, and do you agree with me, that it's Justin Thomas? If it was anybody else, and you look at the last 8 months, it wouldn't be 130, would it?
Exactly. You get a former players champion, a guy who people like to bet. It'd be a much different price.
And also, Coach, you've got the bad history with Scotty Scheffler, but maybe Patrick or Coach, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm guessing Scotty Scheffler was in the bad wave. I mean, he was 55th. He didn't miss the cut, but don't forget, everybody, last year there was a good wave and an extremely bad wave. There was some really bad weather. So some of these guys that missed the cut last year, well, they were in the bad wave, and it's just there wasn't much they could do about it. I suspect Scotty was also in that bad wave, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, that's a great point. Go ahead, Patrick. Go. Sorry.
He was. I believe he was paired with Koepka and Morikawa, I want to say. I just remember all of them hitting the ball into the water on 17.
Yeah.
Like everyone.
They did. That's a great point. A lot of you, and I used to do this before I really got into this, you like to just go back and look at last year's results and go, oh, I'll take that guy, that guy, that guy. You can't do that all the time. And Sia just brought up a great point. Why? If you look at last year's leaderboard, you'll be like, oh, anybody can win this. Yeah. Thank you, Sia. All right. Now, don't need to talk about Scotty Scheffler, but I think it's pretty clear. I almost feel like you and I took a $100 bill, Patrick, out of our wallets, and we're playing tug of war with it. We're just sending it back and forth through virtual Venmo air. We each won a showdown last week, but this week it looks like there's only one. So do I even need to ask? Are you in?
Let's run it back. Let's run it back.
Hit the music.
It's gonna be a showdown.
That sound you're hearing is the $100 bill laughing at us as we just send it back and forth between the two of us. And Sia's just sitting there laughing at us all the time, as it were. Well, quickly, yes, sir?
I'm just laughing at the idea that you actually owe somebody in a showdown, because I don't know that I've ever been paid by you in a showdown. I'm always paying you. So the fact that Patrick has actually been paid by you in a showdown is miraculous.
So yeah, step into
Let's
my
keep that
office.
going.
We can talk later.
Yeah, seriously. I need help.
God, Patrick, you are a savage. You are an absolute savage. All right, very quickly, gentlemen, I don't need to talk about the bottom two. Roy over Rahm. Roy's just in form. He should have won last week, and he even said it. If he would have looked at the leaderboard when he went into the bunker, I think it was on 14, 15, he said, I would have hit a different shot. And he was trying to stuff it in because he thought he was behind, and he actually had the lead. So I love Roy this week. Like Patrick said, we don't think Jon Rahm's in very good form. So I'm going to go Roy over him, -130. Tom Kim, he's my favorite player, but Sanjay is a great ball striker. And I couldn't believe this number at DraftKings, but Tom Kim is a rookie. He's seeing a lot of these courses for the first time. Have we seen anything from Tom Kim in these designated events or these elevated events? No, we have not. Why? Well, the answer is he's seeing these courses for the first time. So I love Sanjay. Max Homa, he had a good year last year, and he's just playing great golf. And just like Sia is fading Xander in DFS, I'm fading him here. Terrell Hatton, he loves this place. He loves the API. This is an easy one for me. And then Keegan Bradley, we already talked about him over Matthew Fitzpatrick. I love all of those. I give you out everything that I love. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 6. I loved all of those I got from DraftKings. All right, up next, gentlemen, and this is where we really been cashing tickets. Everybody waits for these every single week, and you know where I'm going. First round leaders. That's right. We already talked about John Rahm spoiling the party last week. We were in line, Sia, weren't we, for a third straight week of cashing. Then he shot a -7 and blew it out of the water. So let's get right back to it this week. Who do you like?
Yeah, so that was really, I really wanted that third in a row. But listen, this is kind of first round leader season for me, as everybody knows. So hopefully we can get back on track this week. It was hard for me to narrow it down. And the reason is, normally I go with strictly morning guys, but I don't necessarily think there's a morning advantage. I actually think the winds might end up tampering down. Not that that's going to be extreme winds anyway, but there might be some wind in Thursday morning, which, again, it's not going to be a big deal, but it'll be calm Thursday afternoon, most likely. So I took guys from the morning and the afternoon, just so everybody knows. And so what that means is I'm going from the entire pool of players instead of usually what I do, which is taking just morning guys. So just keep that in mind. Colin Morikawa, I just like this tournament. We'll see in the outrights whether I have him and some of the guys on this list. But at plus 4,000, I think he can absolutely get back on track coming off that miscut. He's one of those guys that he'll show up at a tournament coming off a miscut, and he'll remind you real quick who Colin Morikawa is. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the first round over at the Players. Will Zalatoris, Patrick mentioned why he likes Will Zalatoris this week, and I like Will Zalatoris too. And I think he could absolutely dial in here, get it in the fairway, stick it. And the putter has really been hot. You don't need to be a hot putter here necessarily, but the putter's been really hot for Will Zalatoris more often than not. Jason Day, we've talked about at plus 4,500. I like him. Corey Connors, we talked about as well, plus 6,500. I think that's a great number. Tom Hoagie, another guy we've talked about. You see the themes here. I'm going for ball strikers more often than not. And Tom Hoagie is no stranger to a first-round lead. Finally, in the long shot department, there's 6 guys here, but let's be honest, 2 of these are extreme long shots in Tom Hoagie and Jonathan Vegas. So what I mean by that is, pepper these, if anything. But Jonathan Vegas has been a great ball striker, even before the surgery that he had, the shoulder surgery, after the shoulder surgery, no interruption in his game. He's a great ball striker. And if the putter gets hot, I could actually see him contending for the first round lead.
Patrick, you're going to love what I'm getting ready to say. So I waited till right now in the show to bring this out. So last night I went out with a few of the guys that, I work with PGA Tour Live. They played on tour. They still play on tour. And we were talking. And I said, give me one mega star right now that is just off, that can't figure out what he's doing, and that most people don't know. Patrick, what name do you think I heard come out of the first mouth last night?
Patrick McDonald.
Colin Morikawa. And then the second guy says, Colin Morikawa. Everybody said Colin Morikawa. Most of them think he doesn't even make the cut this week.
Wow.
You want to change? Yeah. A lot of the experts don't even think he makes the cut this week. So we'll see, Sia. We will see. All right. Well, he could still be a first-round leader and miss the cut. That's happened. Not very often, but it's happened.
Jordan Spieth just did it.
He did 2 weeks ago, didn't he? 3 weeks ago.
A few weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, it did. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. All right, Patrick, who do you like this week?
Sia's got a showdown against everyone with the PGA Tour Live. I'm hoping you cash for your sake, but for my sake, I hope it's someone else on my list, and it's Sung J M at 55-1. This is a cat who is a great driver of the golf ball. We saw him putt the lights out at the Honda Classic. 55-1 is a very palatable price, in my opinion. I could easily see this closer to Will Zalatoris at 45 or Jason Day at 45. So I think we're getting a good value there. And Siwoo Kim, past winner, already talked about him, 70-1. Just won at the Sony Open not all too long ago. He's a guy who can get hot with the best of them. You hear his peers talk about him. When he puts it together, he is a top 10 talent on the PGA Tour. That's someone like Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth saying that, not me. So you got to take their words for it. And then Keith Mitchell, we talked about bad beats behind the screen before this show. I was on Keith Mitchell first round lead last year. He bogeyed 18 to drop out of the first round lead. I'm going back to it. I'm a glutton for punishment. He was a first-round leader there at the Genesis Invitational. We know what he can do off the tee. Tee to green, he's been great, and I love him in this part of the country. And then Adam Hadwin, 100-1, another heartbreak kid for us at the Phoenix Open, but extremely accurate off the tee. The wedges are dialed in. I'm okay with the most recent miscut at the API. I don't like that course for him. This should be a much better fit with his history here.
Yeah, I didn't like him at the API either. I just don't think that course is very good for him. How come it is in golf, guys, that we can remember every shot that we hit? We can remember every bad beat that we have in golf betting. Why is that?
Different kind of crazy.
It is a different kind of crazy. But, man, do we love it so much. We do. You know what I also love? I love going, I believe, 6 for 6 last week in this next category. Patrick, you can just take a couple of minutes off here. Me and C will handle it with the big boys, okay? So last week, C, I believe you hit 3 of these, correct? I hit all 3 of mine.
I hit 2 out of 3, but keep in mind, because and the reason is because I think it was Ricky Fowler who ended up dropping out of the top 20, but all 3 of them were very generously plus money, like in the plus 180, plus 250 department.
Yeah, we saw. So we'll go 5 out of 6. Not bad. All 3 of mine were plus money as well, so we'll take those. All right, see ya. Who do you like this week in the top 20 in the finishing category? Top 20, top 10, top 5, or even top 40?
Yeah, I'll go top 20. And the reason I only have 2, this is a little different from last tournament where there was a lot of players that I was ruling out in the top 20 market, in the outright market. This week, it's a little different because of various circumstances that I've kind of touched on as this show has moved forward. But I do like Victor Hovland at plus 130. I believe he was 9th here last year. Love the ball striking coming from Victor Hovland. I talked about that earlier. And then Corey Connors at plus 220. Listen, this is a guy, I think this is a really good course for him. You're going to want to keep it in the fairway here. You don't have to, but you're going to want to because the rough is very lush. The rough is very thick. I think Corey Connors is just going to plod along. He's done very well at this course. And I really do see a top 20 for him. And at plus 220, I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, I don't mind those 2 at all. And if you look at mine, you can see that I'm stacking Jason Day. I'm going to play him in the top 10 and also in a top 20 because I think we all agree, it's certainly me and Sia do, that Jason Day is primed and ready for another top finish. Then I love Cameron Young and I like Shane Lowry in the top 20 market. I'm falling into ball strikers. That's what wins at the Players' Championship, or it's players that hit their irons great that particular week. I think Cameron Young can be that guy this week, and I think Shane Lowry certainly has proven over the last few years he can be that guy, and he's not scared to step up on 18 and hit a little baby draw back into the fairway. Most players won't do that, but he will. All right, so I see 1, 2, 5 cash tickets right there, maybe even 6. All right, now, you want to make some real cash? You want to make some real money? Well, you got to do it the hard way, and that's picking a winner. And this week, with all the big dogs here, couldn't be more difficult. So, gentlemen, let me look at my notes. See ya. You've got 5 names, so I'm going to let you go first because you have the most. Explain yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you get past like the 28 to 1s that I have here and you get into the 50 and 80, you can decide whether you want to make these plays or not. And if you do, you can decide whether you want to just sprinkle a couple bucks as opposed to putting something that you would put on, let's say, a Victor Hovland or Colin Morikawa. But interesting what you said about Colin Morikawa. I'll start there at plus 2,800. You know, listen, I think I understand why people in the know might say, hey, listen, he looks off. It's just so funny with him because he can look off one week and he can even tell you, we saw this last year where he's like, I'm just not hitting it right. I'm not seeing it right all off my club. And then boom, he is just absolutely dominating, the next day. So I just think Colin Morikawa is primed to make a little comeback and really contend in this tournament at plus 2,800. I do think he's a good course fit. Victor Hovland, we talked about, another good course fit who's done well here. Tom Kim is interesting to me. Now, no course experience. Notice I didn't have him in any head-to-head markets. I don't have him in the top 20, but I do think he's a pretty good course fit. And Tom Kim hasn't flashed quite like at all really in the last few tournaments, but at 41 to 1, I think I'm willing to speculate because I truly do think he's a great course fit. He'll keep it in the fairway. His lack of length isn't going to hurt him, and he can stick those approaches and get hot with the putter. So I think this might be a time where Tom Kim reminds everybody that he's like an elite player on the PGA Tour. So we'll see. Keegan Bradley at 50 to 1. I almost had him and Tommy Fleetwood. You see Tommy Fleetwood here at 85 to 1 in the first round leader market. I can't pick everybody, so I didn't put them in there. But I like both of their games here. Keegan, for the same reasons I mentioned with respect to Corey Connors, and Tommy Fleetwood, he's been really good lately. But nobody's really noticing, but the ball striking has been elite for Tommy Fleetwood. And his strokes gain metrics, specifically at the Players, have been very, very good. I think plus 8,500 is the wrong number here. If it's me, I'm putting Tommy Fleetwood at like plus 5,500, plus 6,000 at most.
Yeah, the reason people aren't paying attention to him is because all the big dogs are now showing up together at all these events. And that's what we wanted, right? We wanted all the stars playing together, but there's always an opportunity for somebody like a Fleetwood or a Keegan to sneak in there and get the job done. Quick chat question from Crystal. She says, how do you guys navigate top 10, top 20 bets with all of the ties? Well, Crystal, you're in luck. This is the one spot that as long as they get into whatever you bet them, you're going to get paid in full. It's not like a first-round leader that gets chopped up. If you get a top 10 and it's a T10, you get paid in full. So ties do not matter at most books for the top 10, top 20, or top 5 market. All right, now, Patrick, talk to me, big boy. Talk to me.
Yeah, I feel like you guys have done a lot of the heavy lifting for me. You've all mentioned my guys, but I'll put a bow on it. Viktor Hovland, Sia's all over him. I am too. Hopefully it's the, combined play of the week, 28-1. He was great from tee to green at this tournament last year, in particular with the irons, and he found his ball flight. I think that's really key for someone like Viktor Hovland. He has that squeeze cut that he's always known to play, and he found it at the API. So I think he carries that into this week, into a contention run. And then Will Zalatoris and Cameron Young, these are two guys I bet on last week. It's kind of one of those situations where I'm probably going to keep on peppering them until one of them wins. I think the win is coming very soon, and the prices actually got better this week when the field's the exact same. They didn't really do anything to turn me off last week. The course fit is still there for them. Zalatoris has a pair of top 30 finishes here. The driver is amazing. It's immaculate. He put the shorter driver in the bag. He's gained distance from it. He's gained accuracy from it. That'll set him up for all his approach shots, and we know what he can do with his irons. And then Cameron Young, it really doesn't matter what course you put him on, whether he has history or not on it. He missed a cut in his debut last year, but he was in the wrong wave. But we saw him play well at a TPC Potomac. We saw him play well at Harbor Town in his first go-arounds. Those are courses where you got to put the ball in the fairway with smaller greens. That's kind of like TPC Sawgrass. He's contended at big boy tournaments. I think he'll contend this week after T10 at the API.
Yeah, he's not intimidated to play these events against and with the big boys. He is not intimidated at all. Plus 4,000, a great number for Cameron Young, your reigning, defending, undisputed Rookie of the Year on the PGA Tour. All right, so my new philosophy, gentlemen, in these elevated events is going to be this, because we've seen, other than last week, that a big boy has won these events so far. So I'm going to lean in. I'm going to sprinkle at different levels. So I went with Rory because he should have won last week. I think if you watched it on a very difficult week after a very, very slow start, he was the class of the field until Kitayama just got him at the end. So at plus 900, I normally don't like to do it, but I think Rory's actually going to win this week. Then Max Homa, he had a great finish last year, and it seems like every single week he's showing up at plus 2,200. That's my sweet spot. And then Jordan Spieth. You could argue he should have won last week too. It was his putter that let him down. It wasn't his irons. It wasn't his driver. And because of that reason, I think Spieth could get it done this week at plus 3,500. All right, we've got one department left, one section of the show where we like to throw anything, a little potpourri. It could be a long shot. It could be anything we want it to be. We just call it long shot. Very, very simple. All right, see ya. In this category, give me a couple of names that you are looking at that have long odds, but could be a really good fit for this course.
Yeah, let's look at some long odds. A guy, first of all, that's been really successful here in the past and who's shown flashes of the old Webb Simpson, not just last week in one singular round where he was great. I believe it was round 4, but even the week prior, Webb Simpson actually showed us a little bit of the old Webb Simpson. And this is certainly a good course fit, a place where he's done very well before. 130-1. Listen, if you don't want to play this outright, I totally get it. There's such a class in this field, but I do think he might be live in some matchups. He might be live in some top 20s and top 40s. I didn't put the play in for Webb Simpson, but I do think if we're talking about long bombs, 130-1, a guy with his pedigree, it certainly makes sense. Finally, Wyndham Clark, a guy who's had no success here, but has revolutionized his game, particularly with his approach play. I think Clark is really sneaky, both in DFS, in the outright market, and in potential head-to-heads. As you saw earlier in the show, I do have him head-to-head against Thomas Dietrich. I think Wyndham Clark at 150-1, I know it sounds crazy. I think he's got a shot.
Well, the problem with Wyndham Clark is not his talent. It's his confidence when he gets into contention, because that's when he really gets a little bit iffy. He's got the talent. He just has to believe in himself. Unlike Patrick believing in one of my win tickets this particular week. Oh, so all of a sudden you are now dead to me, Patrick McDonald. Dead to me, I say. What are you looking at here?
I'm a glass half empty kind of guy by nature. And so I love the miss the cut props that we got. And Jordan Spieth 2-1, I think is a very, very tasty price. Since the start of the year, he ranks 141st in this field in avoiding the left rough. You can't be doing that around TPC Sawgrass outside of his debut here where he contended against Martin Keimer. It's been a really tough struggle for Jordan Spieth at TPC Sawgrass. So 2-1 for him to miss a cut. I'm kind of just thinking about that duck hook on 18 at the API over the weekend, or the one on 15. It happens more than he'd like to admit. So it's a good price at 2-1. And Justin Thomas, I've been fading Justin Thomas a ton this year. And it's really just has to do with the iron play. It's fine, but it's not to the historical levels of Justin Thomas. He's gotten by with a massive effort from around the green. He ranks first in that metric any which way you look it up. And the putter is abysmal, almost as bad as Jordan Spieth on Sunday. It's that type of level on the back nine. Jordan Spieth was good the front nine. But the putter, he's wild off the tee. He has that snap hook in his bag as well. So those two to miss the cut, the two best friends, the American heartthrobs, the President's Cup teammates, they're both sent packing early this week.
I kind of refer to you two as the same thing. I actually do. Joe says there's a lot of people dead to Coach right now. You know what? You're right. You're right. I'm limiting my field down. The Football Hour does not agree with you, Patrick. He says, you tripping on JT. Tripping. Your reaction to that?
We'll see. We'll see on Friday afternoon.
Oh.
All I'll say.
By the way, I hope you're around on Friday, as I believe our showdown will be done by then.
Ooh.
What's our showdown again? Can you tell the people? Who do you have?
I got Morikawa. You got Shane Lowry. I'm on a 1 showdown winning streak.
Okay. And that will end very, very quickly. Yes, Sia.
I just want to point out, Daniel Greer has a pretty good question in the top 40 market, which I'll try to include next week as well, because I do like that market. Keegan Bradley, top 40, minus 125, and Tom Hoagie, top 40, plus 140. I like both.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for seeing that, because I got distracted. I'm glad you were seeing the people actually trying to contribute to the show, and I'm focused on EC, who's in the chat right now, trying to distract people from the show, because as we know, he begs us to come on this show. If you're watching live right now, he'll be on Early Edge in 15 minutes, and I will handle him then. All right, gentlemen, as always, phenomenal job. But we like to end every single one of our shows asking my experts, what's the number one thing they're most looking for this week? You can use it for this week, or you can use the knowledge for the rest of the season. It matters, because knowledge is power. Patrick, start us off.
I'm looking at the volatility. We see a number of big names miss the cut at this tournament every single year. You think about the finishing stretch at TPC Sawgrass. 16's the par 5 with water, 17 the famed Island Green, and 18 water all along the left side. Really difficult par 4. So for me, I could see a scenario where 5 out of the top 15 in the official world golf rankings are sent packing early. It's that type of tournament, and you have no choice but kind of embrace it.
Okay. See, what about you?
I love that. And I'm going to play off that theme a little bit, because if those guys are going to be out, or if some of those guys are going to be out, who are going to fill those spots? And again, I just love the stories of the Eric Coles, of the Kurt Kitayamas, and this is the players. I mean, I can't wait to see what sort of, middling names are going to be up there on the leaderboard.
Okay. I am also looking forward to seeing who can handle the pressure. This is like being in the Super Bowl of golf. It's a pressure cooker. And by the way, I don't know if you guys have seen this news, but they have now built a double-decker structure at 16 and 17. So now they can double the amount of people that can watch 2 of the most important holes at TPC Sawgrass. So imagine how that's going to feel when you're in that pressure cooker, everybody coming down on you, and you're standing on the tee on 17, and you got to drop it on the green, secure a 2-shot lead. Do you want to do that? We're going to find out who has the gumption to get it done. This is one of my favorite weeks of the year. It's one of my favorite events of the year. I am honored to call it, but I'm honored to be on this show with my boys, Sia and Patrick. We love this more than anything, but we cannot do it without all of you at home tuning in, so thank you for that. So with all of that being said, there's only one thing left to do, and I believe you all know what that is. You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these Early Wedge golf tickets straight to the pay window for my entire crew. Love ball. Patrick McDonald, the counselor, Snake on the 1s and the 2s. I am simply the coach. We're every single Tuesday live at 3 p.m. Eastern time, or you can watch it on demand prior to the start of the festivities on Thursday morning. But regardless, there's only one brand you need to worry about. We like to call it the Early Wedge. Good luck.